the overlords of the New World Order, are now aggressively pushing for a worldwide one-child policy. The Chinese one-child policy was phased in gradually. In the 60s, when it began, you only had to pay a tax penalty. Only later did they imprison you if you had more than one child. Now the exact same proposals to penalize couples who have more than one child are being made in the United States, England, and Europe.
In the push to reduce global warming, children, according to some, are the new culprits. A think tank in the UK says too many kids are what's making the planet worse, saying large families, anything over 2 children really, should be frowned upon as an environmental no-no, akin to not reusing your plastic bags, driving one of those big gas-guzzling cars, taking long trips overseas. The UK, in fact, has negative growth. I think Canada does too. That still, families in our rich countries shouldn't have more than 2 kids.
The eugenics movement has now shaken off much of its Nazi baggage and is using people's legitimate concern about the environment as a cloak to conceal their real agenda. Everyone wants to breathe clean air and have good water, but the controllers of the environmental movement have done nothing but co-opt people's concerns and parlay it into support for global policies that further destabilize the third world and create untold misery. Phony environmental and conservation groups are now the biggest private landowners in the world. They lobby government to take property away from local populations, only to develop it themselves later. When the U.S. military dumps millions of gallons of nerve gas on the east coast of the U.S., they don't say a word. The corporate elite of the planet intensified their push for a global taxation system with a year-long buildup to the live Earth hysteria held on July 7th, 2007 on 7 continents. World leaders announced that saving the Earth was the new organizing principle for humanity and hailed it as the planet's new religion. They claimed that CO2, which plants breathe, was killing the Earth, and that we must reduce the number of children we have to curtail our carbon footprint. Countries across the world marked the day by passing new carbon tax schemes and raising taxes on gasoline, natural gas, and electricity. It is a scientific fact that the sun is the main driver of planetary climate, and the measurements are clear. The sun is becoming hotter, brighter. It has been slowly increasing thermal output in the last 100 years, causing warming not just on Earth, but throughout the solar system. But the scientific facts and even the order of the planets didn't matter to one of the chief organizers of Live Earth, David Mayer de Rothschild, heir to the British arm of the Rothschild fortune, when we spoke to him. When I called Rothschild on the order of the planets, he just laughed, thinking the audience wouldn't get it. He continued to count on the population's ignorance and claimed that the global warming lobby has nothing to do with carbon taxes. I guess he hadn't spoken with his good personal friend, Al Gore.
Global warming, the time for debate is over. I think what you have to realize is that being environmentally sensitive and making money aren't mutually exclusive. There's a lot of money to be made in addressing this issue.
But you guys are gobbling up all the world's concern to just simply line your pockets and make kids read your book in schools and do all this. It's a business, just like you said, Rothschild.
It's not. Do you think I make any money out of this?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing your your money-changing ancestors did. They're in Germany, Red Shield, and I'm calling you out, Red Shield. We know it's a scam.
A pollution-based tax system, principally CO2. We're causing it mainly, vast majority of it. The consequences are bad and will be catastrophic unless we act.
The polar ice caps of Mars are receding at several miles a year, much faster than ours, and that the moons of Saturn and Jupiter are melting. In fact, several of their moons were ice and are now liquid seas. Now, how are SUVs causing that, David Rothschild?
That's because those planets are closer to the sun, my friend.
No, Jupiter and Saturn are not closer to the sun. Neither is Mars.
Yes, sir. I think you'll find, right, that the very simple matter, and what I wanted to say, and this is my final point, forget your taxation theory, because actually it's not taxation.
Put a price on the carbon. A tax is the best way. Cap and trade can also do it.
If there were a carbon-based tax, would there be a need for an economy-wide cap and trade system?
They are not either or. We can do both. I am in favor of both.
Now we will reveal what Barack Obama and his controllers' true agenda is. Number one, bring the United States under the complete regulatory control of a private offshore superbank known as the Bank of the World. More than 100 new taxes are now being developed under the umbrella of curbing greenhouse gases. The new taxes will be paid directly to the private bank consortium. At the producer level, taxes will be paid on farm animals' flatulence. At the consumer level, there will be carbon taxes on all forms of meat, beef, poultry, pork, and fish. All cars will be fitted with satellite tracking boxes that will tax driving by the mile. And an added tax will be placed on all fossil fuels, including motor oil and natural gas. All plastic products will have a carbon tax added. Outdoor space heaters and fireplaces are to be taxed. All electricity produced by coal-powered plants will be taxed. Under the cap-and-trade system, citizens will be forced to pay taxes on thousands of products to private cap-and-trade services owned by Al Gore and other elitists. There will be taxes on light bulbs, water, trash pickup, air travel, train travel, bus, ship, medicine, steel production, mining, clothing, laundry, asphalt are just a few of the new taxes to be levied.
But to truly transform our economy, to protect our security and save our planet from the ravages of climate change, we need to ultimately make clean, renewable energy the profitable kind of energy. So I ask this Congress to send me legislation that places a market-based cap on carbon pollution and drives the production of more renewable energy in America. That's what we need.
Let's go to Jim in West Virginia. Jim, you're online.
Oh, yeah. Jason, you've heard about people getting fined thousands of dollars a day and run out of their home, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's happened thousands of times just in Texas and New York. Would you like to know the name of the code they use to do this?
Let's hear it.
Okay, on paper, it's a $21 trillion scam. It's the International Property Theft Code, and it's labeled the International Property Maintenance Code. Worse than NAIS, ecology easements, and eminent domain combined.
Top story tonight, Australians face huge fines for speaking ill of carbon tax. Praised by Barack Obama as a model for the world, Australia's highly unpopular carbon tax, set to take effect from July 1st, is to be policed by laws which forbid business owners from criticizing it for causing price rises, with the thought criminals who do so under threat of being hit with huge fines of over $1 million. And this is out the Daily Telegraph out of Australia. Shops and restaurants could face fines up to $1.1 million if waiters or sales staff wrongly blame the carbon tax for price rises or exaggerate the impact. And so not only are small businesses and consumers in Australia being hit with the knock-on effects from this, because we know the initial scope of the law is to charge the top 500 polluting companies with carbon taxes. That, of course, gets passed on to consumers. They've already got skyrocketing energy rates in Australia as it is, already being hit from all sides. But now they're even bringing it to this level where, for example, you know, if you're a restaurant, your waiter, your cleaner, whoever, if they dare mention that the carbon tax has caused you to rise prices on any kind of different thing that you supply or sell, it's a fine. It's up to $1.1 million fine for heresy against the Australian carbon tax, which just shows you the fangs of green fascism are bearing once again. And they're actually going to enforce this by teams of carbon cops roaming the streets, carrying out snap inspections of businesses looking for infractions, such as sales promotional material that talks about, beat the carbon price rise before July 1st. So they're getting in discounts before that. If you dare mention it, you're slapped with a cool $1 million fine, according to this draconian law. So again, it's the whole tyranny of the carbon tax. It's not just about higher prices. It's about removing free speech, the right to dissent against carbon tax, because criticizing it in Australia is now a heresy. This is the law praised by Barack Obama as a model for the world. Of course, he's doing it through the EPA and shutting down the coal plants. In Australia, they're doing it through the direct carbon tax. And of course, by 2015, this is all going to be rolled into a carbon trading scheme, the likes of which cause farmers in places like Honduras and Uganda to be brutally evicted, turfed off their land by the corrupt governments in those countries in alliance with Western carbon trading companies, because they want the land. It's lucrative. They take the land by force, wipe out huge numbers of people, whole villages, and grow trees on the land and then sell the carbon credits. And of course, if you dare criticize any of it, then now you're going to get fined in Australia. And it's all going straight into the back pockets of Al Gore and Maurice Strong, the very people who own the carbon trading systems, are invested in them. And of course, the very people pushing the myth, the alarmist, scaremongering myth of man-made global warming.
In lira or the French franc or the Spanish pita or whatever it was, those countries don't have currencies anymore. They gave them up for the euro. Oh, no, 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 said each government. We'll never do that. Well, now there's call for America to give up our dollar for a global currency. Gee, I think I've read that in a book somewhere. Oh, I remember the Bible, the scary part. But anyway, that would lead to a global government. And went, there's no way these clowns will do these things, and they're all happening now, and this is crazy town. Get off the dollar and have a global currency. But I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, when you started first talking about this a couple of years ago when we first met, Glenn, I thought you were into the black helicopters and the meteor shower crowd. But you know what? As you look at what's happened over the last 3 months, it isn't so crazy anymore. It's pretty scary. It's not just the global currency. Look at all the money that we're putting into these global organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, huge amounts of funding for the United Nations, which has always wanted world governance. And then the other piece to this puzzle, two pieces of the puzzle, Glenn, are the Kyoto Treaty, the Law of the Sea Treaty, and, of course, what the Congress passed just 2 weeks ago, which is the cap and trade bill, which basically, to make that work, requires a kind of world governance of all energy use.
Let me go. I'm going to come back to the dollar here for a second, but I want to go to where you were talking about and cap and trade. Here's what Al Gore said last week, but we were all fascinated by other things that nobody really paid attention to this. This is what he said in London. He said, I bring you good news from America, and listen to what the good news is.
It is the awareness itself that will drive the change, and one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Okay, then we have Chirac from 2000 talking about the Kyoto Protocol. He said, this is the first component of an authentic global governance. We have the EU environmental minister on Kyoto. He said, this is about the economy, about leveling the playing field for big businesses worldwide. Stephen, I have to tell you, there are times that I feel nuts for even thinking this, but you gotta call a spade a spade. Sometimes I think the people in our government are intentionally trying to trap us into this global government because it's insane how they're trashing our dollar.
Yeah, first of all, Glenn, with respect to cap and trade, I mean, Al Gore is right. The only way this works is if you have global governance, where you have a global regulator and a global taxer to police every activity of the economy in every corner of the globe. You know, right now, Glenn, all the rest of the countries of the world are laughing at us.
Oh, I know.
They're basically amazed that we unilaterally, economically disarmed ourselves with that vote on cap and trade. Because you know what China and India know? I mean, they're licking their chops right now. They know all those jobs are going to go from the United States to China and India.